Let's bring him in. Sports Medicine Center, Akron Children's Hospital. My good friend, your good friend, with us for over 25 years at this spot in the mornings. And that's Dr. Joe Congini with us. Good morning, Dr. Joe.
Hi, Ray. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, my friend. Thanks for spending a lot of your Friday with me last week.
Yeah, that was a great day and a great tribute to a good friend of ours.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray, for all you do in the community and for giving us the forum to try to answer questions. This is a problem that I want to talk about this morning that has me troubled. And I talked about it a few months ago, and I think it's gotten a little bit worse instead of better. And, you know, I thought as I've gone along the ups and downs of a long career that we were in pretty good shape with coverage of athletes at the sites of schools. That's what we do in primary care sports medicine, especially at a pediatric center. There's a lot of work with schools. And, of course, the key player at the school is the certified athletic trainer. And I talked a little about the concerns that had gone on. Nationally, it started in about 2022. We started to hear there was decreasing numbers of athletic trainers in schools and high schools particularly. And in 2023, I think it got worse, and we started to see it in Ohio. And there's just no doubt here in 2024, there's significant issues right in our area here of lots of schools that were well covered previously that do not have athletic trainer coverage right now. And we're trying to get to the bottom of this. Very smart people in Ohio, because I've really looked into it hard in the last few days, are working on trying to come up with solutions. But so far it's getting worse instead of better. And that is, you know, with the certified athletic trainers, people wondering who are those people. If your kids have gone and played school sports, you know, who comes up and checks your daughter's hand if it gets stepped on, or somebody's ankle that they twist, or injuries that they have, or even from the standpoint of rashes they may have, or treats the bee sting they have, does everything, they do everything at the school as the athletic trainer. And a good study by a group called Healthy Roster that I read this week had some numbers from the end of 2023. In Ohio, about 30 to 40% of schools have full-time athletic trainers. They're in good shape. About 30% of schools have part-time people who come occasionally and do injury checks and some degree of game coverage. But about 30% of schools, over 160 schools, don't have any athletic trainer coverage at all, and that number has really gone up a lot this fall. So I'm concerned about that. You know, that's no games, no injury checks, nobody there at all to help from that standpoint. And in reading more about it, there's really been a transformation in the field. A lot of people in sports medicine, you know, up at the hospitals and in the centers that I am at, say, hey, there's just no trainers when we go looking to hire people. And part of it is, hey, is there a real drop-off? As what's happened in athletic trainers in the last few years, they've moved on to an advanced degree, to a master's degree, to be an athletic trainer in that setting. But actually, the studies I looked at showed there's about as many athletic trainers as there were previously. They just actually, there's a growing demand and transformation of these people to move into the industrial setting, working at places like Amazon, working at fire places and police stations and strength facilities and physical therapy facilities. Those types of atmospheres are just using their degrees more and a little bit easier lifestyle, to be quite honest. What they found in this study that also has been looked at by the OATA, the Ohio Athletic Trainer Association, number one, the compensation was just too low. And for a goodly part of my career, these people were not being paid what they deserved. They were, and so they would start to look for other jobs as they moved along into their career because of the compensation problem. Number two was burnout. And the responsibility in the last decade has increased dramatically. A lot of these trainers will have responsibility for over 100 athletes that they're looking at. That's just too many. And they increase the hours, and now they play sports year-round through the summer. These people used to at least have a little bit of a break in the summer and things. And so it's really become an acutely difficult problem. And there's less centers, less colleges in Ohio that have these advanced degrees. So you put that all together, and is there really a shortage or just a shortage in the schools? As people, as one of the guys said in one of the articles, they're voting with their feet. They're moving out of the schools and into some of these better settings where they can work 9-to-5 jobs and they're appreciated more and they're paid more. I finally do see some movement in the payment. In the last year, I've seen around the state that there is some increase in payment, and they deserve that. But there's a lot more that needs to be done. The OHSAA, the OATA is looking at mandates of mandating that there be athletic trainers on the field, and that we have to absorb that cost for safe care of our athletes when they're on the field. So that's one problem, Ray. But the other half of the equation that I'm learning this fall by being out at some other schools around town. I've traditionally been mainly at Hoban, but this year in a role of kind of an emeritus role, I'm kind of getting out to a lot of other schools. Is in Friday Night Lights, particularly in football, we used to have the emergency medical people, the EMTs or private ambulance companies at games, and many, many schools now have gone away from that for number one, the financial burden. Number two, they figure, hey, there's already some medical professionals on site at these games, and they know how to use AEDs. And the fact is, the ALS, the problems for the life-threatening issues of head, heart, heat, those aren't all solved by the AED. And so now a lot of those things are having to be evaluated by teachers, by coaches, by people who really don't have the knowledge of looking at those emergent things. And so I'm really concerned that the emergency care personnel is not on the sidelines anymore. And then finally, we used to get a lot of calls 10 or 15 years ago from residents or doctors who wanted to volunteer and cover on Friday nights at different games and stuff. We're not getting those calls anymore from people. I don't know if the risk is too high, if the docs are too busy. There's not nearly as many physicians that want to help those athletic trainers on the sideline. So you put this three-headed problem together, and it really is putting our kids at risk right now, and it is affecting us in Ohio for sure, Northeast Ohio for sure. I've seen it with my own eyes this fall. And we need smart people. I just want smart people to get together and start to get to the bottom of figuring it out. I think the pay scale is the first step, and I'm a little bit encouraged to see the pay scale is changing a little for certified athletic trainers. But there's a lot more work to be done, Ray, and I just want to keep your audience aware of that. There's so many good people in your audience who come up to me at different times and say, gosh, we listen to that, to hear what's going on. Ray always keeps us updated about what's going on around town. So thanks for what you do, and thanks for giving us the soapbox to tell people about this problem that really has me concerned.
Joe, a couple of things. One, great piece, because now that I was listening to your delivery there, you're exactly right. With me going to many high school events as well, there always used to be an ambulance in the corner of the field or personnel. And now that you brought to my attention, you're exactly right. You don't see that as much anymore. And you're right. Boy, the school districts and schools with so many of their students participating in extracurricular activities on down the line, the expansion in sports, it makes sense for these districts to make sure they put that in their budget for these trainers and these personnel to keep their students safe.
Yeah, I called several of the fire chiefs in our region to figure out what they're thinking. Sometimes they do a standby thing where they'll send the unit or the squad that night, but if they get called to another site, they have to leave the site. But one thing they also see that was frustrating them is they were getting a lot of inappropriate calls. Calls, on things that maybe weren't emergent, or calls that were too late on things emergent, because these things are being evaluated by lay people. And so that's really a concern for the EMS people. They're concerned too, and they want this answered. One good thing about us in Northeast Ohio, we do have shorter response times. This is really a problem when you get out to more of the rural areas, and it's such a long time for a squad to get to an event. But anyway, it is a problem, and you know that I'll keep your audience updated, Ray. Thanks a lot for what you always do for everybody in our community.
Great stuff, Joe. Thank you for the time to visit with us. Education. We'll do it again next week. Thanks, Dr. Joe.